Lesson 2.4, solving equations with the variable on each side. Our essential question is, what is the first step to solving an equation with variables on each side? Remember that the first step a lot of times is critical. Sometimes you have some choice, but other times you do not. So we're going to try to help you figure out when you have a choice between your first step and when you don't. Okay, our steps. The first step is we are going to use inverse operations to eliminate one of the variables. And then our second step just says solve the resulting equation, because after you complete your first step, it will look like one of the equations that we've already learned how to solve. So our first equation says 8 plus 5x is equal to 7x minus 2. I'm going to draw my train tracks, and I want you to think about what that first step said. It said to eliminate one of our variables using inverse operations. Now I see on the left-hand side that I have a plus 5x, and on the right-hand side I have a positive 7x. My preference is to keep my variable positive. So in order to do that, I am going to eliminate the smaller of my two variables. The smaller would be my 5x, so the inverse of adding 5x is subtracting 5x. Now what I do on one side of my equation, I have to do on the other, because that equal sign means that it's an equality. So I can't take something off of one side that would tip the balance, unless I take the same thing off the other side. So my 5x's are gone on the left-hand side, and I'm left with just my 8. On the right-hand side, notice that I put my minus 5x under my 7x because that's its like term. So we can subtract and get 2x, and then bring down my negative 2. Remember that the sign in front of the 2 goes with it. Now this is a two-step equation. It's just like the last section. My married couple piece is the 2x. The coefficient 2 and the x right next to each other. That's my married couple. So I need to eliminate the minus 2 by adding 2 on both sides. I now have 8 plus 2, or 10, equals 2x. So my last step is to divide by the 2 that was in front of my x, giving me a solution of x equals 5. Now, I can plug that in to check. Plug that in to check and make sure that it works. Remember, checking isn't required on your homework assignment, but it's definitely recommended when you take a test or quiz so that you are certain that you've got the correct answer. When I plug in my solution, x equals 5, I am going to have to put it in both spots where we see the x in our original equation, and I'm checking to make sure that my equation is balanced. My solution should be the same on both sides. I would multiply first, and then add. Multiply first, and then subtract. My solution checks. So x equals 5. Okay, another example like the last. I'll use a different method solving in case you don't like solving with the train tracks. My variables are 5x on the right-hand side and negative 3x on the left. So I am going to add 3x to cancel out my negative 3x. That would be the inverse. Now I have negative 1 equals 8x plus 7. So I'll subtract away that 7 because my married couple is the 8x. Negative 1 minus 7 is negative 8. And I will have to divide by my positive 8 to get my variable alone. My solution is negative 1. Negative 8 divided by positive 8 is negative 1. I can plug it in and check. Negative 3 times negative 1, and 5 times negative 1. Multiply first. 3 minus 1 is 2. Negative 5 plus 7 is also 2. So my solution checks out. X equals negative 1. Okay, this example is different. This is different than the last two. Why is it different? On the left-hand side, all I've got is 3x. So my preference in keeping my variables positive is not going to work out so well on this one. It would actually add a step for me, because if I subtract away the 3x, there's nothing left on the left-hand side. I would have to have a 0 there, and then I would have a two-step equation still. So I am instead going to subtract the 9x, because really, you can do either. You can eliminate either variable. It's up to you. So now, on the left-hand side, I will have a negative 6x, and I need to bring down my negative 12 on the right-hand side. Now this is only a one-step equation. Divide by my negative 6, and my solution is x equals 2. So, the first two examples I eliminated the smaller of my variable terms using an inverse operation, and on this one I did not. I eliminated the larger one, the 9x, because the 3x was all alone. So if something is all alone, I tend to leave it. Okay, now we've got some decimals. So same process, only some decimals. The smaller decimal is 0.5, because that is like 50 cents. I'm going to put a 0 on it, 0.50x. So 0.7 equals, if I subtract 75 cents minus 50 cents, I get a quarter, so 0.25x. Married couple has my variable and my quarter, so I have to add 6.3 on both sides. So 0.25x equals 7. Now 7 divided by 0.25, that's like asking yourself, how many quarters are in $7? Well, there's 4 quarters in $1, so that means that there's 28 quarters in $7. Don't be afraid of the problem if it has decimals in it or fractions in it. Another one with decimals, and this one doesn't have two terms on the left-hand side. So again, I'm going to leave alone that 1.3x. I have to subtract the 3.3x because it is a positive. So 2.8 on the right-hand side is equal to 2x, and it would be a negative. So 1.3 minus 3.3 is negative 2. Dividing by negative 2, positive divided by a negative is a negative, and 2.8 divided by 2 is 1.4. So x equals negative 1.4. So, your summary, the first step to solving an equation with variables on each side is, please answer this question, and here are your homework problems. They skip around a little bit, and there aren't very many of them, so please take your time, and if you want to write out the checks, go ahead and write out the checks.